After years of saving and planning, a family finally stepped off a plane into the thick, humid air of a Southeast Asian paradise. The air felt heavy, saturated with a thick, sticky humidity that clung to the skin far more than the overhead sun. This exotic welcome, filled with flower weaves and traditional fire ceremonies, felt like a dream realized. Their accommodations weren't typical resort fare. The family was led out to a wooden stilt cabin, suspended high in the canopy and isolated deep within the dense jungle. To a child, this setup feels entirely magical. The isolation is disguised as an adventure, completely masking how cut off they truly are from the rest of the world. That evening, the family gathered around a campfire. As the jungle grew dark, local guides began sharing stories of jinns, spirits said to haunt abandoned buildings in the area, and the unseen dangers lurking in the trees. One story stood out. The locals warned of the monkey wolf. They described a creature with the powerful, muscular body of a baboon, capped with the head and mane of a snarling wolf. The guides explained that to encounter this terrifying beast is to be overwhelmed by a sudden, intoxicating paralysis. Its squalling scream triggers a primal flight or fight response that mostly leaves its victims completely frozen in fear. As the fire died down, the child's safe worldview dissolved. Every shadow between the trees became a potential lunging point. The child lay awake for hours. Outside, the distinct sound of something heavy began shifting through the branches. It wasn't the wind. Something was leaping from tree to tree. Then came the noise. A bizarre, unnatural scream echoed down from the canopy. A deep, rhythmic hooting that sounded like maha-hoot, oot. The noise woke the father. The child watched as he got out of bed and peered through the front window. But with only moonlight reflecting off the dense leaves, he couldn't spot the source, shrugged it off, and went back to bed. When the child asked if they were safe, the father applied pure adult logic. He explained that they were in a foreign land, so hearing strange, unfamiliar animals was to be expected. He assured them the camp wouldn't put guests at risk. But those comforting words collided directly with what the child could clearly hear. The freaky noises were multiplying. The obvious sound of several large, heavy animals gathering around the cabin grew louder. The lights went out. The cabin fell silent. But while the adults slept, the sounds outside only grew more distinct. Multiple heavy bodies shifting through the canopy, surrounding the wooden walls. By sunrise, the nocturnal chaos was replaced by whistling birds and gentle breezes. The scent of pancakes, fruit, and toast drifted through the fresh forest air, temporarily washing away the midnight anxiety. The day brought a new distraction. The family spent the afternoon riding four-wheeler motorbikes through the deep jungle trails, pushing the terrifying myths out of their minds. But as the sky bruised into an orange and purple sunset, a wild, agonizing shriek tore through the jungle. It sounded like something was being physically mangled, and it absolutely was not human. Immediately after the scream, the entire forest went dead silent. The birds stopped calling, the insects quieted down. It felt as though all the ambient sound had been violently sucked out of the air. A nearby adult briefly asked what was going on, but the group quickly fell back into an eerie normalcy, acting as if the noise never happened. Every time the child tried to ask questions, the adults brushed them aside. By refusing to acknowledge the horrific sounds, the adults unwittingly isolated the child even further. Without protection or validation, the narrator was left alone to face the impending dark, terrified that the monkey wolf was real. The second night brought intense, suffocating humidity, but worse was the sudden explosion of noise. From the canopy above, a chorus of chirping, clucking, and heavy thudding impacts echoed, as massive beasts began swarming the area, snapping thick branches under their weight. Trapped in their bunk bed, the child and their younger sister peeled back the blinds. Under the bright glare of the full moon, they watched the treetops violently shake, one by one, as something huge advanced toward their cabin. Then, the attack became physical. Hard objects, nuts or heavy rocks, began slamming against the wooden walls. Thud, ting ting ting, boom. Hearing the commotion, the father finally got up. He marched down the hall and stepped out onto the small wooden deck, scanning the dark trees. The very second he appeared, the entire jungle went terrifyingly, completely silent. Out of that dead silence, a solid object whipped out of the dark, missing the father's head by an inch and slamming into the cabin. He let out a yell of surprise, and the forest instantly erupted in aggressive squawks. As a barrage of heavy items rained down on the roof, the father retreated, ordering everyone to kill the lights and close the blinds. The myths from the campfire had taken physical form. The cabin was now the target of a coordinated, violent assault. Peeking through the curtains, the child finally saw it. A massive beast lunged onto an elongated branch, bending the wood under its weight. Bathed in moonlight, the creature had a light brown body with the terrifying, sharp-eared face of a wolf. Behind it, 7 pairs of glowing white eyes gathered in the dark. The pack climbed onto the deck and the roof. Then came a horrific sound from the front window. Ting, ting, ting. It was the deliberate, rhythmic tapping of an elongated fingernail against the glass as the creature searched for a way in. The family huddled at the back of the room as the hooting reached a fever pitch. There was a brief, tense moment of silence. Then, with an explosive boom, a massive ball of fur violently smashed straight through the front window glass. The creature unrolled on the floor, shrieking. Up close, it was worse than the folklore. It had a thick mane, sharply pointed ears, and a face that looked like a possessed, salivating wolf, as it instantly began tearing the furniture apart. As 2 more sets of glowing eyes peered through the shattered frame, the father slammed the interior door shut. He smashed out the back window and frantically pushed his family out one by one, fleeing into the jungle toward the guide's quarters. The family survived the trip, eventually relocating to the opposite side of the island. But even years later, the narrator remembers sleeping with one eye open, listening to the jungle, waiting for the next invasion to begin.